If you love either Silas or Caleb as a character, then you kinda have to love the other as well. Let me make my case. I see most fans draw parallels between Caleb and Zane for very obvious and logical reasons, and they make so much sense, especially from the main story standpoint. But what I'm trying to get at here in this video is a parallel between their characteristics. And you don't even have to see them as love interests. You might main one and not the other. I'll get to that. But if you love either one for who they are as a character, then I think the other should appeal to you as well. For I see so many similarities between them, and we'll also talk a bit about why they feel so different from each other. But the image I have of them is kind of like two plants sprouting from the same seedling but facing opposite directions. Something like that. Um Both Silas and Caleb have this debilitating, deep-rooted self-hate, right? And both of their traumas are heavily linked to their bodily autonomy being breached. Caleb was experimented on, while there's constant danger to Silas's life. Even on his birthday, people were trying to take him down. Caleb hates himself because he has feelings for his sister. It's less about what society would think about that. Caleb Mays are right to point out that he doesn't care all that much about what the world thinks. He's only concerned with how MC views him. So it's more about how he was supposed to be this safe haven, an adult she could count on and trust when the adults in their lives have constantly failed them. Someone who would shield her. That was the role he was meant to play, but I wager he understands that his romantic and sexual feelings are a breach of that familial trust, and he's rightly conflicted about it. Meanwhile, Silas hates himself for who he is, a monster. I've talked about how he was always labeled as the evil that shouldn't exist at length in my previous videos, and there is no way he didn't internalize that. It is also why MC keeps reaffirming his existence, celebrates his birthdays, and these celebrations are slowly becoming a catalyst for Silas to love himself and to connect with her on a deeper, more vulnerable level. And it won't be an earth shattering statement when I say this self hate inhibits their capability of introspection, of truly facing themselves. However, this phenomenon presents itself differently in each character. Caleb is stuck in the past where their relationship was pure and innocent, wasn't as complicated, and he has trouble navigating this change in the status quo. Silas, on the other hand, cannot face the past and is constantly on the run towards the future, towards new possibilities. So I'd say he's stuck in an uncertain future. Both literally because the world wants him dead, and figuratively because his past is where his monstrosity lies. We know how he softened after meeting MC because while he was never one to immediately resort to violence to begin with, if others were to attack him, he wouldn't even blink when retaliating, and he would retaliate in huge scales. But after meeting her in other timelines as well, he holds back because Silas doesn't want her to hate him. There are many instances in which he feels shame for acting in line with who he is when MC is present.
Today's subject is slavery.
Get to the point.
Another similarity is how they are the providers. Of course, in gacha games, love interests' lives always revolve around the main character to varying degrees. So, all of the love interests in Love and Deepspace do things for MC as well. But Sylus and Caleb, to me, are unlike the rest. Provider is a label I use for a certain group of fictional characters who form relationships in a very unilateral way, meaning they provide, but they are very uncomfortable when being on the receiving end. Their self worth is closely tied to this act. So they feel like what they provide is the sole reason their significant other is with them. And the second they don't or can't provide, their significant other will leave them or stop loving them. Because in these characters' minds, the only lovable or worthy aspect of them is the thing they provide. That's a lot of provides there, but I'm sure you get where I'm going with this. What Caleb provides to MC is care, while what Silas provides for her is the world. I'll expand on this. In Caleb's case, it's the
clothes handed to you, meals served on cue.
oh, whatever MC wants, he'll be there to make it happen, even before she's consciously aware that she wants it. The root of their conflict at the beginning of the main story and their intimate storyline is exactly this. MC saying she doesn't need this care anymore, or at least not to this extent. There are so many delicious implications of this that I'll get into in another video. But in this context, the conflict is that MC's rejection of Caleb's care sounds like she rejects him, his existence, to Caleb. Because keep in mind, Caleb and Silas's self worth and their reason for existing in their minds is linked to providing. What I mean by Silas providing the world for her is the world she otherwise can't experience. Think of the firearms with the finest, rarest materials that are tailored to her, limited edition motorbikes that he can get his hands on before the release, protocors of the highest grade, wines of highest quality, the most luxurious jewelry or dresses, highbrow or exclusive events, you name it. Through material and influential means, he can make anything a reality at the snap of a finger. I'm sure you've also noticed how looking at the world from a high vantage point keeps coming back in their narrative. This, of course, partly has something to do with Silas's past timelines, where he had wings and would take her to these high places, but metaphorically, it doubles as being at the top of the world in every sense of the word. But like Caleb, this is his way of making himself useful to her. If only I can make time, this will be the topic of my second video, say. Hashtag believe. Anyways, as I've said, this continuous and sometimes over the top act of providing is rooted in self hate. And you can see this in Silas acting awkwardly whenever MC tries to gift him something, or automatically assuming the package that just arrived at Anakindness's base is something she ordered for herself. And when she says it's for him, he acts as if it's the most inconceivable thing in the world. No two people are truly equal in a relationship, romantic or otherwise, but of course, a relationship can only work when both parties strive for a balance. And for both Silas and Caleb, this is the primary obstacle to a true relationship. That said, the key difference in this providing situation lies in how this circumstance unfolds in each case once again. In Silas's case, despite everything, he's very, very eager to get past these walls between him and MC, actively wants to get to know her, trust her, let her in, love her unabashedly, and wants to be loved back the same way. Caleb's case is quite complex, and I don't have the time or space to get into the psychoanalytic implications of their separation and oneness here, but I will soon, hopefully. So let me leave this at they need that separation or distinction in order to experience a relationship in a true sense. I also think Silas and Caleb are similar in wanting to tear down pretenses and face the world with all its beauty as much as its filth and cruelty. They are not ones for the flowery veneers. But I don't know enough about the rest of the love interest's approach to this topic, so it's better if I leave it here instead of making generalizations that might turn out to be wrong. But Caleb and Silas were the two characters who really made a point in this regard, and it caught my attention, which I mentioned again in my previous video essay. So, in my opinion, among all the love interests, Caleb and Silas are the two whose existence so heavily relies on MC in the sense that they live through MC. However, the way these similarities present themselves and the way Silas and Caleb direct them towards MC are what shape the dynamics they have with her, and basically the reason these characters eventually read quite differently. Circling back to bodily autonomy, because both Silas and Caleb's sense of self is intricately tied to MC and they live through her, they do everything in their power to get her to stay, so to speak. Now, yes, sure, every character who's in love goes to certain lengths for their object of love and desire to love them back. But in Applecrow's case, it's not about their feelings being reciprocal because they lack a strong or steady sense of self. Their worth is only validated through MC loving them back. Now, I hope I was able to convey the difference between the two because they are a whole different matter. What separates these two characters is how they project these feelings and needs onto MC. From here on, I will be using a metaphorical but violent imagery, so you may skip the video a few times if that would, I don't know, make you uncomfortable. Just a heads up. Caleb is, needless to say, intense. You know, the cat with the bell, the let's run away to places where no one can find us, etc. Because his desire and love for MC are so boundless and powerful. I remember thinking of Caleb as similar to a kid frustrated by not knowing how to hold onto a toy without breaking it. So he often struck me as a character who'd, in another world, say, I will hold on to you so tightly, and maybe I will break you into pieces while I do, but I love you no matter the form or shape, and I will take such good care of you. So, what matters is that we will be together forever in our isolated, private little garden. He'd rip MC's arms or break her legs if necessary, but she'd want for nothing when she's with him anyway. Now, just to make it clear, because some people take things literally, I'm not saying he'd be violent with her or anything. He couldn't bear it. I don't think he could. This is just a mental image I have of his intensity and want for exclusivity and seclusion. I'd argue this is partly his character and partly his desperation resulting from finding himself thrust into a world where he had no agency and a fate that bound him to these impossibly, cruelly conflicting feelings. For Silas, however, it's imperative that your legs are attached to your body and they are in top condition. It's crucial for him that MC has full autonomy and she does things out of her free will. MC choosing him is secondary to MC having a choice. She's free to do whatever she wants, however she wants, and Silas will always situate himself with reference to her as the center. Due to his perception of the monster inside him, MC wanting to be with him, with the monster, has to be an informed, conscious choice, and she always has to have a way out. This is why in Silverwing, his last question to her is whether she regrets choosing him. He cannot be referring to dying here, as he already knew that her aim to find Sacred Core was to become immortal and pass away someday. Or I think he mentions this when you're playing the claw machine with him as well, where he says something like, instead of, being trapped with you in this claw machine, I'd rather try to break free. Hence, contrary to Caleb's powerful hold on MC, Silas reads as if he's too scared to even hold her in his palm, afraid of harming her. One instance that stayed with me is the Nightglow card, where he had a set of jewelry and he put the necklace on MC but asked her to put the earrings on herself, saying he's afraid of hurting her. But we know how truly nimble he is with his hands. The man's been cutting gemstones to perfection and with such precision that it actually became boring. Or modding electronic devices, guns, making knives from scratch, repairing instruments, you name it. He is good with his fingers. Do what you will with that information. Be it his claws, fangs, or his current status as the head of a notorious organized crime group, his existence is a danger to hers. That is why MC should be the one making this choice, and to appeal to her, he's ready to throw the world at her feet. To the extent she lets him, that is. But again, it's important to underline that his letting her free is partly tied to his fear of rejection. While that breach of autonomy caused Caleb to turn inward, and his reflex is now to protect what he has and to isolate himself and MC from the outer world, Silas's reflex is to turn outward. I know his fans label him the consent king, and it is true, but I think part of the reason is that he knows, or at least he assumes, that exerting even the slightest force would turn her away for good. It's such an interesting character study, in my opinion. Certainly compelling to read two characters who have similar, almost identical initial settings, but end up quite different due to circumstances. As I've said, you might be maining one and not the other. Caleb would surely feel overwhelming and restricting to some, with the dynamic center being codependency. Meanwhile, Silas could feel too nonchalant, independent, or uncaring to others. To me, it's quite fun to discover bits and pieces where they mirror each other, and it feels fulfilling to see both of them taking small but firm steps to be in a satisfying and happy relationship with MC. Fun fact, because I'm a super forgetful person, I started recording voice memos last year. I'm sometimes, not in a position where I can take notes. I remember recording a note on these similarities, and I can't believe I did that on the very first day of the year. A brand new year starts, and all I can think about is two fictional characters who are ailed by the same traumatic stuff. Says a lot about me, I guess. Anywho, thank you all so much for showing interest in my opinions and voting for the poll on my TikTok. I hope this video was worth the wait, and as always, let me know what you think. See you around. Of course, maybe I should, I don't know, internet has become a weird place. I should know that this is not me pitting two love interests to each other. I'm not power scaling. I'm not saying one love interest is better than the other because of so and so. These archetypes and tropes exist so that they appeal to so many people. To each his own.